in the examination because of a lot of events that were happening in the India's neighborhood in the Central Asian republics. So that is why the question was critically examine the aims and the objectives of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. What importance does it hold for India? First part here is very interesting. Critically examine the aims and objectives of the SCO. If anybody who is preparing for the SCO would simply, what he would do is, he would pick up the aims and objective, understand, okay, regional collaboration, economic collaboration, all these things, and will fall short of critically examining the aims and objectives, but focus more on the second part. What importance does it hold for India? Okay, but that will give you lesser marks. You have to address all the parts of the question. That should be your priority, right? That is how you approach. Plus, of course, it was part of the groupings and the agreements involving India's interests. This was the syllabus. If you look at the previous year questions, already a question was asked from the Central Asian region related to Ashgabat Agreement, of which India is also part, which was seen as important for the connectivity projects like INSTC, Chabar Port, and the other connectivity projects. Okay, that's why a question. Then if you look at the Quad also, Quad was also formulated. Quad was in news. Question was asked regarding the nature here, nature of the Quad. Similarly, we have been asked to critically examine the objectives of the SCO. Okay, so whenever you are preparing any organization, whenever you are preparing any agreement, you critically analyze that. Okay, for example, in the mains test series discussion, we contrasted the position of BIMSTEC with SARC, right? So that is how you do it. Okay, what was the current context? It is pretty straightforward, pretty simple for everybody to understand. First immediate context was US's withdrawal from Afghanistan, unfolding of the great game in the Central Asian republics, and challenges that is posed by the great game to the India's continental strategy. Now, continental strategy, if you understand India's position or India's geographical location, you are aware India is surrounded by oceans on the southern side and the eastern side. And in the northern side, we have the continental landmass of Eurasia. So if you look at the strategy, you see India has a strategy of maritime strategy and India has a continental strategy. And some of the policies of continental strategy are look west or the connectivity projects, connect Central Asia. All these are part of the continental strategy. Plus, this is the space where India has lesser influence as compared to maritime space. Okay. So that is how it is. So while answering such question, we already are aware, if you look at this map, you look at the location of India, and you will be able to understand some of the important things related to SCO and why this question was asked. We are aware Taliban had taken over in Afghanistan. Central Asian republics were the ones which still hold a considerable influence in this region. Okay, plus these are important players. These are some of the countries which share their border with the Afghanistan. Okay, plus these are the countries which were present in Afghanistan even when the US withdrawal was taking place, along with Russia, China, and Pakistan. Okay, so that is why it was important. Plus, it is important. This region is particularly important for India because India wants connectivity from this part to Central Asian republics. Okay, so all these things are very generic. We already are aware of these things. Okay, Central Asian republics are doubly landlocked. This is a resource-rich region. It has huge deposits of hydrocarbons and uranium. Okay, plus it has witnessed some sort of political stability also, not much politically fragile, although Kazakhstan witnessed some protests in the last few months. So all these things are there. Plus, this is the region where China is trying to increase its influence because of the geographical proximity. China has good trade relations with this region. Okay, then this is the region of focus for China's Belt Road Initiative. Look at Russia. Russia has these were the erstwhile part of the erstwhile Soviet Union. Okay, that is why Russia still has considerable influence. A prime example is when the protests were happening in Kazakhstan, Russia sent its military in support of the Kazakhstan's regime. That's a clear example that what kind of influence Russia holds here, right? That is why the great game. Okay, we have discussed these things. So let us look at the structure to this question. What could be the answer structure? First would be highlight the stated objective of the SCO because we have been required to critically examine the objectives of Shanghai Cooperation Organization here. Fine. Second is, in the body part, we'll focus on issues that are there with the aims and objectives. We'll focus on that part also. Okay. Third is, what is its importance for India? A pretty straightforward thing. And finally, how SCO aligns in broader foreign policy of India and role it can play in Afghanistan, because that's the current context. We'll use it in the conclusion part. Fine. So the introduction is, or you will highlight the objectives. So in this, you'll write the main objectives of the SCO is to strengthen mutual trust, and neighborliness among the member states, promote their effective cooperation in politics, trade, the economy, research, technology, culture, education, all these fields. Okay, this is the officially stated objective of the SCO. Fine. So that is why if it is best if you reproduce the same, but if not possible, we already are aware of the important strands of cooperation in terms of objectives, right? Then in this question, to enrich your answer, you could have drawn the map of this region. Okay, broadly a map. The Central Asian Republics, you could have marked Central Asian Republics. You could have drawn the Caspian Sea here. Okay, and you could have marked the Russia and China here. Fine. Plus location of India is already clear to us, isn't it? So this could have been shown in the map. Plus you need to highlight the members also. This is just some simple thing that you need to do to make to polish your answer properly. Okay. Then looking at the issues with the aims and objectives. What are the issues with the aims and objectives? So when SCO was formulated and Russia and China were part of it, US and Europe used to see it as an anti-NATO organization. Okay. So that is one thing. The US had said about the SCO that it is an anti-NATO organization. Plus NATO is the one which was formed by the US and its allies during the Cold War. We all are aware of. NATO is again in news because of the Ukraine issue, isn't it? So it is seen by the US and the Europe as anti-NATO. Example, US sanctions against Russia after Crimean annexation, closeness between Russia and China. All these highlight that US sees it as an anti-NATO body. Then if you look at the membership, there is contradiction because of India and Pakistan's stand on the issue of terrorism. We have talked about this thing in the mains revision classes, isn't it? We have talked about the contradictions that exist within the SCO. Okay, we talked about the contradictions that exist within the Quad memberships, right? So that is why there are contradictions, particularly on the issue of terrorism, because Pakistan is known to be supporting terrorism in India, right? And India has been accusing Pakistan of it, but still both are part of it. Okay, so we are critically examining the objective of it. Although you are saying that what is the main objective of SCO? It is to improve or strengthen mutual trust and neighborliness. But what is happening here? These are the two countries which have opposite stand or confrontation on the issue of terrorism, right? Then we have the SCO RAU'S mechanism here, okay, which is specifically dealing with the issue of terrorism. But there is lack of consensus on the issue of terrorism here. Okay, not all the countries are on the same page. Fine. Then there are bilateral differences between India and China, although both are part of this grouping. Now India and Russia are seen as good friends. The only countries with which you can say India has good relations is Russia and the Central Asian Republics. China and Pakistan are true adversaries of India. Plus the China-Pak axis has been bothering India for quite long, isn't it? Then if you look at the connectivity goals of the SCO or the members of the SCO, India's focus is on Connect Central Asia policy, whereas connectivity goals of the China is focused on Belt Road Initiative, which India outrightly rejects. Okay, or you can say because it has been posing a threat to India's sovereignty because it passes through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. That is why India has criticized the Belt Road Initiative. So clearly we see, if you look at the connectivity goals, which is one of the goals of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, this is contrasting. The members have a contrasting goal. So these are some of the things that you could have written while analyzing critically the aims and objectives of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Then importance was one of the easiest part that was asked in the question, because that was most predictable. Everybody prepared it properly. It was there in the Compass magazine. You could have easily written answers. Plus, if anybody had an idea about the Central Asian Republics or interest of India in the Central Asian Republics, could have written that in this particular part. But the idea was you could have highlighted few examples or some data here and there. So if we look at importance of SCO for India, we introduce this second part of the question with this statement that India's security, geopolitical, strategic, and economic interests are closely intertwined with development of the Central Asian region. Right? In this, first and foremost is energy security, because uranium and hydrocarbon resources are of interest to India. These are the resources that are found in Central Asia. Okay, then look at the economic growth. SCO produces more than 22% of the global GDP, that is expected to be around 38 to 40% in the coming years. Fine, by 2000 in the coming years, right? Plus security cooperation, RAU'S is one of the platform. Okay, it is viewed by India as a platform to access intelligence and information and is also seen by India as a solution to regional security cooperation. Look at the connectivity projects. The SCO members are gateway for India to Eurasia because India is focusing on the INSTC, the Chabahar project, etc. Fine. Then look at what this makes is because India has had issues in its continental neighborhood because of the adverse geographical location. Because China, on the western border, India is covered by Pakistan. On the northern borders, China is having borders, which blocks India's access to the continental part of Eurasia. Okay, but if we become a member, if we become a part of some of the important organizations, it will of course improve India's status in this part, right? So it enhances India's status as an important player in the Asian continental neighborhood, which has been one of the focus areas or concern areas for India's foreign policy. Got it? Then it also acts as a platform for evening out differences with rivals like China and Pakistan, especially given the strong ties between India and Russia. So we can use it effectively if we are there. Not engaging is not very smart thing to do. Okay. Why don't you all guys turn on your cameras? Why do you want to listen to it passively? Okay. So this is the thing you could have written in the importance of the SEO for India. Fine. And in the conclusion part, yes, thank you so much for turning on your cameras. That gives us encouragement when we see some of the expressions on your face. Plus, we can address the concerns and queries that you have, right? So in the conclusion part, you could have highlighted that SEO is part of India's stated policy of pursuing multi-alignment, right? That has been the focus of India. India is aligning in the multilateral groupings. India has said that its status goal is strategic autonomy, where India wants to align with different groupings as well as countries. Plus, SEO can play a very crucial role in India's engagement with Afghanistan post the Taliban's takeover. And India must continue to look for positive engagement with the member nations of these organizations. This is one prescriptive thing that we can write here. Clear to everyone? Right? I hope this was understandable. This is how you address the different parts of the question, the demand of the question, right? So this was the question. And then this, if you look at the coverage in this, because it was in current affairs, it was there in the news because the SEO meet had taken place and it was being contrasted with Quad. So we discussed in the mains revision classes the difference between SEO and the Quad. Plus we looked at the issue of India's membership of SEO and the Quad, which was seen as geographical contradiction by some of the experts. So we looked at that aspect, but the question was relatively simple one. But if you look at this comparison that we did related to SEO and the Quad, in this part, we highlighted the critical part of the aims and objectives of the SEO. That is, it is seen as anti-NATO and all these things, right? So that is how we did it. Fine. Plus, if you look at the mains compass, which is visible on your screen, it was elaborately covered, the importance it holds for India, challenges for India in the SEO, way forward, all these things, contrasting goals or the issues related to the objectives of the SEO, all these things were covered in your compass. You could have easily created an answer. So even after getting good notes, the challenge remains of writing good answers, which can only be done with preparation of good model answers and then practicing a lot of answer writing, right? Even when you have best of the notes in the world, it will not fetch you good marks. It is only the answer writing which is going to fetch you good marks. Fine. So first step is of course knowledge, but second step, or you can say the most important step, is answer writing in the examination. Fine.